Component 1, Section C. This section comprises of a 2-film study focusing on British film since 1955. We're going to look at Trainspotting, which is directed by Danny Boyle, which stars actors such as Ewan McGregor, Ewan Bremer, and John Lee Miller. This contrasts with our other case study, which is Shaun of the Dead, which is directed by Edgar Wright, which stars actors such as Simon Pegg, Katie Ashford, and Lucy Davis. For the exam, we must know our 2 films in relation to the core study areas, narrative and ideology. The first question we have been given from the exam board is, how useful has an ideological critical approach been in understanding the narrative resolution of your chosen film? To deconstruct this question, we need to evaluate if ideological approaches, worldview theories, for example feminism, capitalism approaches and Marxism, whether any of these theories help us to have a better understanding of how the film ends. For the second question, how useful has an ideological critical approach been in understanding binary oppositions in the narratives of your chosen films? We need to look at Levi Strauss's binary opposites, which is whereby related concepts in opposite meanings, for example in relation to characters, locations, social, economic or political elements. We must look at how this helps us to understand the story. Both of these films are worth 40 marks, and we must contrast both together and talk about each film equally.
Choose a job, choose a career, choose a family, choose a big television.
You're a quiet, sensitive type, a little bit crazy, a little bit bad.
Trainspotting follows the life of heroin addict Mark Renton, stumbling through bad ideas and sobriety attempts with his unreliable friends. The film shows Renton's transition from his old life of repeated drug use in Edinburgh to his new business life in London. However, he quickly finds that he cannot escape his past life when Begbie and Sick Boy show up with a scheme in mind. The film handles many cutting topics such as drug use, the AIDS crises and criminal activity.
There are a wide variety of clearly flawed characters in Trainspotting. The film follows lead character Mark Renton. Renton opens the film with an energised chase scene accompanied by a dry, sarcastic voiceover. He is disconnected from society and what most people would consider a civilised lifestyle, instead choosing to pursue a life filled with the joys of heroin and antisocial behaviour. After enduring several traumatic events, Renton caves in and conforms to the pressures of society, turning against those he has grown up with. Sick Boy, Renton's best friend since childhood, also lives a life under the influence of the drug. He is cold, amoral, and a scammer. He considers himself to be above all of his friends. He truly seems to have no real loyalty, which can be noted towards the end of the film when Renton says, "And Sick Boy, well, he'd have done the same to me if only he'd thought of it first," illustrating Sick Boy's complete lack of attachment to even the man he's known the longest. Spud is one of the film's most sympathetic characters. He is daft but evidently has a good heart. He seems to be a genuinely nice man caught up in a world too dark for him to handle. He uses the drugs as a way to find pleasure in an otherwise dark place. Spud is frequently portrayed to be a victim. People want him to succeed because he is a redeeming character. Begbie is the most sociopathic of them all. He is not in on the drug lifestyle unlike the other men, and Renton describes his character perfectly when he says, "Begbie didn't do drugs, he did people. He doesn't care who it is, he will abuse them." Notably, Begbie stays away from hurting women. When he finds out the woman he was about to enjoy a one-night stand with at the nightclub was in fact a man, he has a crisis and feels threatened. This could lead us to believe that perhaps Begbie is a closeted homosexual and unsure how to express these feelings. Diane is one of the most forward-thinking characters in the film. Though she falls victim to Renton's newly awakened libido, she maintains power over the situation by manipulating him into staying with her, much like a femme fatale. She shows a clear distaste for his lifestyle and calls him outdated for his habits, despite the fact she dabbles with drugs as well through smoking pot. Tommy is perhaps the biggest victim of all the characters in the film. Originally a relatively clean athlete, Tommy falls into a depression after his relationship breaks down as a result of him giving away his homemade adult video of himself. He leans on heroin as a crutch to get him through this, then as a result contracts HIV and eventually a toxoplasmosis that leads him to his death.
Sean, played by Simon Pegg, is a 30-year-old man with no real ambition in life, with a dull and easy existence. When he's not working at the electronics store, he lives with his friend Ed, played by Nick Frost, in a small flat on the outskirts of London. The film describes the only predictable element in his life to be his relationship with girlfriend Liz, who desperately wishes for Sean to grow up. His lack of maturity, shown by their constant trips to the Winchester, led to Liz dumping Sean. When the town is overrun with zombies, Sean is forced to rise to the occasion and protect both Liz and his mother in an attempt to win Liz back.
Shaun of the Dead also has its own share of a variety of characters. Sean is a nice guy but a bit of a doormat. He allows people to walk over him and refrains from situations where he could be strong. Sean's lack of motivation causes a problem with his girlfriend. Ed is Sean's childhood best friend. He probably isn't the best influence on Sean, given that he's also just as sluggish and unmotivated. He seems to lack thought and consideration. He spends most of his life just playing games on Sean's PlayStation and dealing weed. Liz is Sean's girlfriend, and the same age as him. Their relationship has been rapidly deteriorating because she expects Sean to become more responsible and mature. She feels that she needs a change in her life and that things have become very monotonous and boring, hence her longing for a man with ambition. Diane is Liz's best friend and keeps an optimistic, enthusiastic attitude for the majority of the film. She is bubbly and caring, but does not know about David's feelings for Liz. She thinks that Liz should dump Sean because of his lack of motivation and ambition. David is Diane's boyfriend, who has secretly been hiding his feelings for Liz since they were at university together. He is a university lecturer who secretly resents Sean and wishes that Liz would dump him so that he can have Liz for himself. He's sensible, but has a dry and sarcastic humour that makes him quite irritating. Barbara is Sean's mum and epitomises the typical British woman. She just longs for everybody to get along with each other and be happy. Her relationship with Sean is difficult because Sean dislikes his stepdad, who Barbara married shortly after the death of his real dad. Philip is Sean's stepdad. He's strict and stern, and has high expectations of Sean that Sean feels he is unable to meet. Despite this, he truly sees Sean as a son and craves a bond with him. Pete is Sean's other housemate, who tends to be a lot stricter than the other two men. He has a responsible, mature, full-time job and has ambitions to further his career. His friendship with the two of them is very strained, and so it's questionable whether it will continue until the end of the film.
These are our bullet points for Trainspotting questions. Feel free to add in your own analysis of the film and use key scenes which you deem appropriate. Question A. How useful has an ideological critical approach been in understanding the narrative resolution of your chosen film? Binary opposition. The film ends with the flawed hero Renton leaving. And the definition of binary opposition is a concept that appears opposite but actually needed to define their meaning. The film ends with Renton leaving his friends and stealing the money, which they were supposed to share the money. The audience is then positioned to sympathise with Renton and his betrayal due to the binary opposites. Begbie and Renton are both primary binary opposites. He doesn't want to threaten or hurt anyone. However, Sick Boy and Renton are binary opposites due to Renton having some sense of morality, but Sick Boy uses and abuses people. Spud and Renton. Spud is easily led and weaker. He has a personality flaw, as Spud is the only person Renton feels sympathy for, resolving this by leaving Spud a share in the money. Renton commits amoral deeds. He is capable of achieving any sympathy from the audience from binary opposites. Poverty and wealth are also binary opposites. Poverty is juxtaposed with the wealth of London to the grimy house that they do drugs in. Opposing representation of poverty and wealth is also juxtaposed of locations. Context for the end of the film. In 1996, the Conservative government were in their last year of government. Scotland had always been a traditional Labour country who hated the Conservative Party, and the optimism is reflected in the end, with the binary opposition of despair at the beginning. Renton lists the everyday mundane tasks of a normal person, which shows positive optimism. The characters are therefore being conformist. It's problematic for Marxists, as Renton has given up trying to get caught up in the capitalist ideology, and Marxists would disapprove of this, as Renton has become a repentant sinner, and he has embraced materialism, and the big drug deal at the end allows for opportunity through these earnings. Renton clears his debt morally and starts a new life, and the ending ideals with functionalists. The audience roots for Renton to succeed by the end. Marxists wouldn't argue that the proletariat should conform to the ideologies, which Renton does in the end.
Part 2. How useful has an ideological critical approach been in understanding binary opposites in the narratives of your films? The definition of binary opposition is to draw up binaries which can help map key ideas and themes of the film. Renton is in binary opposition to his so-called friends. In relation to Sick Boy, who becomes fully nihilistic and unsympathetic, Renton is in complete opposite. We sympathise with him. In relation to Begbie, who is sadistic and bullies everyone, Renton is peaceful and good-natured. An example of this is seen in the scene where Begbie attracts a transvestite and Renton tries to make light of it. Begbie is then aggressive towards him. Renton is liberal, whereas Begbie is conservative in how they view gender and sexuality. Begbie's hypocrisy is quite evident in the pre-credit scene, which is a binary opposition of Renton's comparatively more informed views on substance abuse. Begbie's first piece of dialogue is ironic, which is the binary opposition to Renton's being too self-aware. Begbie says, "No way would I fill my body with that shite," preaching against drugs because of chemicals, but is oblivious as he drinks whiskey and smokes cigarettes. Begbie is Renton's binary opposite as he's far more politically naive than Renton. He can see all the hypocrisies in society. There is a binary opposition of social and political views of characters, which are rooted in the film's liberal ideology towards the drug debate. The film ends on an anti-heroin ideology when Renton chooses life and quits heroin.
This is our answer and bullet points for question A for Shaun of the Dead. How useful has an ideological critical approach been in understanding the narrative resolution of your chosen film? The zombie film ideology is often the idea of surviving, which is the main theme. The family values, which is a constant reminder of the other characteristics that Philip is not the father, which is shown to dislike his stepfather, reinforcing the evil step-parent family stereotype. Most of the film is set in the Winchester pub, which is shown as a safe place, which mocks society as Britain is known for drinking. It also has a political ideological approach. Gramsci's hegemony to signify the ruling of one social class is used. It symbolises economic and political control, showing the capability to project their messages and values onto the rest of society. Subordinate is a common theme. It recognises these ideas from the powerless class as a kind of